They showed up to my baby shower at last, empty-handed, like it was just another errand on their list. No present, not even a card. Just a folded-up loan document for a car my brother already drove off the lot. Surprise! You're helping your brother, Dad said, grinning like he'd just gifted me a puppy. Mom followed up with a hand on my shoulder and that fake soft voice she uses when she wants something. Be grateful we trust you, she added. I kept it simple. Just nodded and said, understood. Then quietly unlocked my phone beneath the table, went straight to my banking app, and hit cancel on the transaction they thought I'd cover. About 15 minutes later, I watched my brother pick up his phone across the room. He answered, listened for a beat, then practically yelled, "What did you sign?" like I'd just set the house on fire. Let me backtrack. They didn't warn me they were coming. No message. No RSVP. They just walked in, half an hour late, loud enough to steal every bit of attention away from the party games and unopened gifts. Mom had that picture-perfect smile on, the one she wears when she's pretending to be a supportive parent. Dad didn't even bother pretending. He pulled out a manila envelope like it was some kind of grand gesture. Surprise, he said again, dropping it right into my lap, waiting like I was supposed to clap or something. You're helping your brother. I looked down, confused, then opened it. Inside was a legal loan agreement. 15 grand. And somehow, my name was already listed as the co-signer. Turns out, the car was already bought. My brother was probably out joyriding while I was still cutting baby shower cake. Mom leaned in again, touching my shoulder like we were in on a secret. This is huge for him. Be proud, she whispered. And that's when it hit me like a gut punch. They weren't asking me for help. They'd already decided. It was done. Set to clear by Monday morning. Either they forged my signature, or they'd copied it from some other favor I'd done in the past, when they needed help with paperwork. Around us, the party kept going. Cupcakes untouched. Streamers swaying under the air conditioning. I stayed still, smiled just enough, and slid my phone out under the table. Cancelled the payment. That was all it took. 15 minutes later, my brother's phone rang, and I watched him nod slowly, then shout across the room like a toddler denied candy, "What did you sign?" He locked eyes with me. I didn't blink. Just took another sip from my plastic flute of sparkling cider, the one my cousin handed me when they walked in. He stomped out. Dad trailed behind, clearly annoyed. Mom lingered just long enough to toss a comment my way, something about how I was making a scene, though I hadn't moved an inch. But inside, something cracked. Not loud or sudden, but deep, like shifting weight on a rotting floorboard. And it didn't come all at once. I wish it had. That would have been easier. Instead, it peeled back slowly, layer after layer, like wallpaper hiding mold that had been spreading for years. That envelope wasn't the beginning. It was just the latest entry in a long-running record of offenses. One insult stacked on another, like chapters in a book I never asked to be part of. Sitting there, surrounded by people pretending nothing had happened, I finally understood this wasn't some slip-up. It wasn't a one-off mistake. This was the system. They had built it around me. My patience, my silence, my stupid hope that one day they'd actually see me as more than a means to an end. And I had let them. Again and again. Quietly. Foolishly. I remembered my brother's birthday last year. Dinner at a fancy rooftop steakhouse. I picked up the whole $800 tab. Didn't even get a slice of cake. Just a half-hearted thank you text that misspelled my name. Then there was the time I covered the HVAC replacement at my parents' place, $7,100. Soon as our tax return hits, we'll pay you back, Dad had said. The refund came. The money never did. Or the $2,000 I lent my sister when she said she was struggling. That same weekend, she posted a mirror selfie in brand new designer boots, with the tag still hanging off. And still, I kept showing up. Kept swallowing the bitterness, convincing myself maybe this time would be different. Maybe they'd see me, not as a resource, not as a fallback plan, but as someone who actually mattered. But they never did. At my baby shower, the one thing I thought might finally be about me, I was nothing more than a footnote in their script. A background actor in their latest scheme. And still, they expected me to grin through it. And I almost did. I almost shrugged it off again. But then a memory surfaced, one I hadn't let myself think about in years. Sophomore year of college. I had just come home for the holidays after the accident that flipped my world upside down. I was still adjusting, figuring out how to live differently. One night at dinner, I offered to do the dishes. My hand slipped. A plate hit the floor and shattered. Mom laughed, not out of cruelty, just casual dismissal. "Some things you'll never get right," she said. Dad didn't even glance up from the TV. My brother leaned over and whispered, "You shouldn't have come back." They didn't think I heard. But I did. And I carried that with me, through the years of being their afterthought, their backup plan, the one they called strong, because they knew I wouldn't break loud enough to cause them discomfort. They used my independence as a reason not to check in, not to show up. Even when I got pregnant, on my own with no one at my side, they didn't step in. No card. No call. Barely even a mention. But now that they needed something, now they showed up. Not with love. Not with support. Just with a forged document and a demand disguised as family duty. And that's when the full picture finally sharpened into focus. I gave. They took. I showed up. They left me out. I stayed quiet. They assumed that meant yes. And none of this was a fluke. This was learned behavior. A cycle. They counted on me staying silent, so they could push a little further every time. They didn't just disrespect me. They erased me. They rewrote the script so often that they believed their version. That I liked being used. That I wanted to be the one who bailed everyone out. That my silence was permission. That, understood, meant agreement. But I wasn't their helper anymore. I wasn't the safety net. I was their infrastructure. The bank behind their reckless choices. And the worst part? They didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. They felt owed. They really thought I owed them something. And honestly, I can see why. I never yelled. I never pushed back. I never stepped away, not when I should have, not when it counted. But that was over. I was done. I finally saw it for what it was. All the flashbacks I used to shrug off, the ignored invites, the passive-aggressive praise, the cold affection, they weren't isolated moments. They were part of the blueprint. And now that I'd finally studied the layout, I was ready to tear the whole damn thing down. Not out of revenge. Not out of bitterness. But because I could finally see it clearly. To them, I wasn't a person. I wasn't their son. I was a solution. But that day, the asset was logging out. And they were about to find out what life felt like without their most reliable resource. They never taught me how to draw boundaries, just how to feel guilty for needing them. I was raised on responsibility. The kind of love where your worth is measured by how much you're willing to give up. And silence? That was just another word for loyalty. What they never considered was what happens when that silence runs dry, when the one who never caused a fuss suddenly starts to move. And I moved fast. By midnight, I was lying in bed, earbuds in, laptop glowing. On one screen, my monitor app. On the other, my banking dashboard. I saw the loan, 15 grand, already processed, but the money hadn't cleared yet. They'd used an old shared savings account to push it through. It was one I'd opened ages ago, back when Dad was out of work. I kept it open out of habit. Well, their habit, needing help. Big mistake. Step 1. I froze the account. Step 2. I called the credit union and filed an unauthorized transaction report. I knew the system. I worked in systems. I had every login, every receipt, every timestamp. My name was still on the account, which meant I had every right to dispute it. By sunrise, the loan was under review. And that's when the real cleanup started. I opened the document I'd quietly built over the past few months. Titled, Failsafe. It was a private running log. Every single dollar I'd handed over to my family in the past 5 years, no exaggeration. Bailouts, phone plans, health insurance, auto repairs, help with the mortgage. When I added it all up, $117,000. That didn't even include the holiday gifts, the emergency wire transfers that always popped up over long weekends, or the paid trips nobody said thank you for. Then I started flipping switches. One by one. The car insurance? I had 6 family members tucked under my group policy. I took them all off. Let them fend for themselves now. My brother was going to feel it first, once the DMV flagged him for expired proof of coverage. Next up, streaming services. Netflix, Hulu, Disney+, Spotify family. Gone. All those years of watching on my dime, using my logins, pretending it was no big deal. Every profile, deactivated. Even the one Dad had sarcastically named Family Hill. Then came the cloud storage. My mom's entire digital photo collection, baby pictures, scanned family albums, the whole memories folder, was hosted under my drive. I didn't delete it. I downloaded everything, moved it offline, and left a polite little note, available upon request. Respectfully. Security system? I'd installed it myself. There's smart locks, the cameras, the thermostat, all of it was connected to my business dashboard. I pulled admin access. Replaced their control app with a default login screen. Please contact your system provider. Let them sit on hold with customer service for once. Then came the final switch, the trust. 3 years back, I'd set up a legal trust for my child, bulletproof, long-term planning stuff. And, out of obligation more than affection, I'd quietly listed my parents and brother as contingent beneficiaries. Just in case, I told myself. That morning, I opened the file, hit edit, and erased their names. One by one. My mom, my dad, my brother, gone in a few keystrokes. Because I finally understood, I wasn't their legacy. I was their backup plan. Not anymore. At exactly 10:37 a.m., the first message came through. From Dad. Hey. Bank's saying something about the loan. You fix that. No punctuation. No apology. Just assumption. At 11:02, Mom chimed in. They need your signature again, honey. Don't be difficult. That word, difficult. It always meant the same thing in our house. How dare you have boundaries? I didn't respond. Instead, I logged into the auto loan portal. Filed a fraud claim. Uploaded a scanned copy of the document. Annotated it in red, drew an arrow to the forged signature, and typed. Never signed. Never agreed. Under review. At 1:26 p.m., my brother tried calling. Didn't leave a voicemail. 5 minutes later he texted. What did you do? I muted the conversation. Then opened my personal vault. Started exporting copies of every single document I'd ever co-signed, ever backed, ever guaranteed. Labeled. Organized. For legal backup. Not because I was cutting ties. Because I was finally keeping receipts. Let them try explaining to a judge why they faked a signature on a loan tied to a baby's future. By nightfall, I'd reassigned every access credential tied to my kid's emergency fund, redirected our healthcare proxy to my lawyer, and shifted all their home tech services to a third-party provider. They always joked about how organized I was. Like it was cute. It wasn't cute. It was armor. And now it was strategy. The entire system they built on my silence, was crashing. All I did was pull the final support beam. And the most satisfying part? I hadn't said a single word to them. No lecture. No confrontation. Just one short note to the loan officer handling the fraud case. If they reach out directly, please escalate. By 9 p.m., the calls started. First my mom, then my dad, then my brother. I didn't answer, because we weren't in the discussion phase anymore. We'd officially entered the consequences phase. I wasn't holding my breath for an apology. What I did expect was noise, and sure enough, that's exactly what rolled in. It started with the old family group chat, the one that had been dead since Grandma's funeral. Suddenly, it came back to life like it was some emergency hotline for emotional blackmail. Mom kicked it off with a dry, cold line. We need to talk. This has gone too far. No hello. No context. Just pure panic typed in Times New Roman. Dad followed right behind her. You've embarrassed us. That loan was a sign of trust, not betrayal. Then my brother, sounding like he was trying hard not to blow a fuse. You made this worse for me. You should have checked before escalating. Not a word of shame. Not a flicker of guilt. Just irritation that their plan didn't play out. The group chat exploded from there, Voice notes, warnings, screenshots, passive-aggressive jabs, veiled threats. I watched it all unfold while standing in my kitchen, one arm rocking my daughter, bottle in hand, as their meltdown lit up my phone. They thought I'd respond. Thought I'd crack. Instead, I calmly screenshot every single message, every accusation, and forwarded them all to my lawyer. No extra commentary, just the subject line. As discussed. Here's documentation. An hour later, they changed tactics. Welcome to Phase 2, the pity performance. Mom started sending me sad selfies, her red-eyed, crying in bad lighting. Then a blurry photo of Dad with his head in his hands. Then a picture of a casserole on the stove, captioned, "We made your favorite. Please come over." Like baked ziti could patch up fraud. Then the guilt messages started rolling in, this time dressed up as confessionals. "We just wanted to help your brother. He's struggling. You've always been the strong one. The stable one. We depended on that. Can't you see how tough things have been for us?" But none of it, not a single line, was about what they'd done. It was all about how I'd reacted. Because in their version of the story, the real betrayal wasn't forging my name, it was my refusal to play along. The silence? That broke them in ways yelling never could've. They'd prepped for a blowout. What they got was a void. And they didn't know how to fill it. Then came Phase 3, damage control. They started scrambling when the outside world started asking questions. I got a text from a coworker first. He forwarded a message his wife got, from my cousin, clearly parroting lines fed by my mother. "Just a heads up, there's been some troubling behavior in the family. Anna's acting out. Legal stuff. We're worried." My coworker added a quick note. "Hey man, everything okay?" I smiled. Sent him a screenshot of the loan document. Then followed it up with the fraud dispute confirmation. His reply came back 30 seconds later. "Never mind. They're nuts." But they didn't stop there. Next, it hit Facebook. Mom posted something vague and dramatic. "Sometimes, the ones you give the most end up turning their backs the hardest. We tried. God knows we tried." And then came the flood of sympathy from her knitting group, her church ladies, the bridge club regulars. "You're a saint. Kids today have no gratitude. You did your best, dear. The saint after all that?" That night, I sat down and wrote something of my own. Not to them, but to the rest of the world. One public post. Straightforward. No emotion. Just facts. To those hearing rumors, I canceled a fraudulent auto loan opened in my name without my knowledge or consent. For those who need clarity, documentation is attached. I included the loan copy, the dispute confirmation, and my official email to the lender. I blacked out my account number, but left every signature visible. No caption. No names. I didn't need to drag anyone. The truth didn't need a villain. It had receipts. Within a day, the narrative started to collapse. 3 of my cousins liked the post. 2 mutual friends quietly deleted comments they'd left on Mom's post. One aunt called me, voice trembling, to say she was ashamed she ever believed their version. That's when the phone started ringing for real. Not texts. Actual calls. Mom went first. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice cracked. "You think this is a win? You're tearing the family apart. You're hurting everyone. Don't you care?" 10 minutes later, take down the post. This is family business. You don't air dirty laundry in public. Family business. That phrase they always used like duct tape over a bullet wound. Not because they wanted things resolved. Because they wanted them erased. They wanted me to pretend it never happened. But the dam had already broken. And I wasn't interested in patching holes anymore. Then came the last play. At 2:17 a.m., I got an email from some strange address. No subject. No message. Just an attachment titled, "Loan underscore options underscore reconsideration underscore alternate underscore terms .pdf. Inside was a brand new agreement. My name removed. My brother's signature added. The loan still at $15,000. At the bottom, this supersedes all previous drafts. And a one-line note in plain text. This fixes everything. You can take the post down now. I stared at it for a full minute. They thought this would wipe the slate clean. A silent edit to scrub away the crime. No apology. No accountability. Just another attempt to pull me back into cleanup duty. Instead, I forwarded it to the loan officer reviewing my case. Subject line: attempted cover-up. See attached. I hadn't planned to go public. That was never the goal. I figured sending the forged documents to the fraud department and quietly pulling the plug would be enough. I thought if I backed away, they'd finally run out of steam. But that was the thing. They didn't need steam. They were fueled by my silence. But they just kept blowing air on the fire. They kept fanning the flames, expecting me to smother it all for their sake. What they didn't get was this: I'd stopped protecting anyone. It wasn't anger. It wasn't revenge. It was pure clarity. For years I stayed quiet, let things slide. But this time, I chose honesty. Honesty over the filtered Instagram posts and the whispered family stories about me being difficult or never letting things go. For years, I even helped them gloss over the cracks, polish the windows so everything looked shiny and fine. But not anymore. It started small. A simple email to the HR rep at my brother's dealership. Hi, I believe a financial document related to a company loan was forged. Attached is a PDF with signatures not authorized under the listed name. I'm filing a fraud claim with the lender but wanted to give you a heads up. No drama. No judgment. Just the facts. Then another email, this time to one of my clients, a small business still using software under my company's old license, passed on by my dad. Just so you're aware, my family might be trying to use my name or reputation to access credit or services. Please verify independently and don't assume any connection. Professional. Detached. Within a week, I got a call back from the dealership. The manager kept it brief. Asked me to confirm when I received the forged document and if a formal dispute was underway. Said yes. Sent the timeline. 3 days later, my brother was put on administrative leave. Not fired. Not yet. But the mask was cracking. They thought I wouldn't go this far. That was their mistake. Because I wasn't going anywhere. They came knocking, with pressure, manipulation, and empty promises. I answered, not with anger, but with receipts. I archived every message, every voicemail, every shady post. Dated, indexed, filed. Then I started a private blog. Not flashy. Not viral. Just a straightforward, chronological record titled, What Really Happened? A Family Story in Documents. Each post short and factual. Entry 1. The baby shower $15,000 auto loan surprise. Entry 2. Forged signature, timeline of events. Entry 3. Group text meltdown, screenshots and analysis. Entry 4. The cover-up email. No anger. No opinions. Just cold, hard facts and PDFs. I didn't even share the link publicly. But someone found it. Within days, I started getting quiet messages from distant relatives, old teachers, friends of friends. Even a girl from high school reaching out after reading the blog. I had no idea. Respect. Respect. A word my own parents never quite learned to give without strings attached. Then came the tipping point. The blog link somehow landed in Mom's church group chat. I know because she left me a voicemail I'll never erase. Her voice was trembling, not with sadness, but pure panic. You need to take it down. People are asking questions. Your uncle called last night. He said we're a disgrace. What have you done? I hadn't done anything. Just shown the receipts. But to them, truth was exposure, and exposure was war. Because in their world, image was everything. They could handle dysfunction as long as it stayed private. They could handle pain as long as it was packaged neatly. But this was raw and unfiltered. And they were terrified. Dad didn't call. He sent an email. One line. I hope you realize you've pushed this family to the edge. I stared at it for a long time. Then I replied, I didn't start the fire. I just stopped covering it up. And then I posted that too. Entry 5. The final post. Because that was all it took. I didn't yell. Didn't curse. Didn't plead or fight. I just shared the facts. And they couldn't face it without shrinking back. Because the truth wasn't loud or violent. It was just inconvenient. For people who'd built their whole lives on polished lies, that was enough to break them. One Sunday morning, they showed up uninvited, unannounced, just standing on my porch like nothing had happened. Mom wore that fake, practice smile, the one she saves for manipulation dressed up as concern. Dad stood behind her, arms crossed, her backup she never asked for but always counted on. I didn't open the door. I stepped outside and waited. "We want to talk," she started. "You've made your point. Now let us make ours." I said nothing. "You've gone too far," she added. "This has hurt everyone. Some things are better handled privately." Dad jumped in. "You don't destroy your family over one mistake." That word again, mistake. Forgery. But manipulation. But to them, just a hiccup. Then came the real truth. "We need you," she said. "The loan's frozen. Your brother's gone. We're drowning." Not, "We miss you." Not, "We're sorry." Just, "We need you." I looked at both of them and finally spoke. "You didn't lose a system. You lost a son." They froze. "You brought a forged contract to my baby shower and called it trust. You built this family on guilt and silence. I lived in it, until now. But I have a daughter. And she will never learn that kind of love." My mom's eyes welled up. "So that's it? You're cutting us off." I nodded. "You didn't lose a dinner. You lost me." I handed her the welcome mat she'd once given me, cheap metaphor, but fitting. Then I turned and walked back inside. No slammed doors. No final outburst. Just silence. And this time? The silence was theirs to carry.